Hi, everyone. My name is Christina Prella.
And my name is Janet Carr. Welcome to another episode of the Women in 3D Printing podcast. In spirit of the upcoming TIPE 3D Printing virtual conference taking place January 27th to 28th next year, 2021, we are going to be dedicating the first series to the TIPE. So you might be wondering, what is the TIPE? TIPE represents the tracks for the conference: technology, industry, people, and economics.
And as your hosts, we are so excited to share our conversations with these trailblazing women. The all-female speaker lineup we have prepared for this conference is made up of women that have carved their careers in additive manufacturing and have inspired all of us. We can't wait to introduce them to you so you can get to know them before the conference.
So we invite you to hit that subscribe button, follow us on LinkedIn, and get to know the stories of these awe-inspiring women before the event.
We'd also like to give a shout out to our platinum sponsors, HP, Trumpf, Matter Hackers, GE Additive, and Dassault for making all of this even possible.
Thank you so much, Alena, for joining us today. Alena Folger is the head of R&D at DyeMansion, and she will be speaking about some of the works they're working on in the additive manufacturing sector.
Thanks for the invitation. I'm really excited to have a nice chat with you now, Janet.
Yeah, and the whole purpose of the podcast is to help folks learn more about your story. What have you been doing? What has DyeMansion been doing to take this industry further? But before that, we really want to learn more about who you are and what launched your career into additive manufacturing.
Honestly, I have to say, I was not really searching for a position in 3D printing. At the time when I applied at DyeMansion, I just finished my PhD in chemistry, and I was looking for a new opportunity. I knew that I don't want to stay in science for several reasons, but I love to do research work. So for me, it was obvious that I want to hold some R&D position somewhere in industry. And it was also important for me to find a position where I still have the feeling that I can have an impact. And luckily at this time, DyeMansion was looking for an R&D chemist. I just was at the right place at the right time, I would say. And now with 2 years of retrospective, I can say that it was a perfect match, because here at DyeMansion, I can contribute with all my ideas and develop exciting new things. And the best of all, 3D printing, and especially the post-processing, is such a young field, and there's still a lot of stuff to discover. So this is something a researcher's heart beating faster. So I'm really happy to be here.
DyeMansion is a startup, and you started off as a chemist and then made your way as head. Like, what is that transition like? What is the different, what do you do differently on a day-to-day basis?
Well, in the beginning, as I was the first chemist at DyeMansion, I was a lot in the lab and working with all the processes, like really working there, mixing dye stuff and developing, for example, the vapor fuse surfacing process. And now as a head, I have a great team with me who is doing all this lab work, so I can focus more on the bigger things, on the vision, where we want to go, where we should develop some new stuff. And so it's more working in front of a computer now and not so much hands-on working in the lab anymore, but both sides are nice. And sometimes if I really miss the lab, I just join my team members and help them, for example, to mix one dye solution or something like this.
Yeah, I was gonna say you must miss the lab and the hands-on experience.
Yeah, sometimes I miss it, but it's also a good progress to have something new to do. So I'm also excited about the new stuff which is coming up now.
Yeah, and speaking of new stuff, what are some of the challenges that you're trying to overcome in the industry that you can share?
Yeah, so well, I think in general, additive manufacturing is not at the point where everyone thought it will be at 2020. There are still some hurdles to overcome, especially if you think about the industrialization. We are not at the point where we can really say it's additive manufacturing. Still, it's a lot of prototyping and maybe some small series production. And I think one of the keys is the post-processing, which we are doing at DyeMansion, because with the post-processing, you can really overcome this hurdle and go from a prototyping stage to an industrial manufacturing stage, and you can really have final parts for various applications. I think the most important thing we are doing right now is to enable that additive manufacturing will be an industrial solution, and that one day 3D printing is kind of part of everyday's life. So for example, for me, it's already, because I have my 3D printed glasses, which I wear literally every day, and I also have my nice earrings. So for me, it's already kind of part of my daily life, but this is still not true for the most people around the world. But I think we can help a lot with post-processing to come to this point. That's it, basically what we do in general. But also from a researcher's point of view, I have to say, it's not our main goal just to reach this somehow, but we should reach it always with parts which are better than the conventional manufactured parts. It's not the key just to replace injection molded parts, for example, but with additive manufacturing, you have so many opportunities, and we should use those opportunities and really make the parts better with 3D printing. And here I think especially the right choice of material and also the right choice of post-processing is the key to get to this point.
DyeMansion has a lot of consumer businesses that are excited about what you're working on. What are some of the things that they need in order to maximize 3D printing that DyeMansion helps enable beyond post-processing?
Especially in the consumer industry field, the people have to realize that 3D printing is not a one-to-one copy of the conventional parts, because you have to consider a lot of things, especially in the design phase, to really make use of 3D printing. And sometimes this is not taken into account right now, but I think in the future this will change a lot. And for all the other industries, I think it's already in the mind of the people who work with 3D printing, but this is also kind of the reason why they are kind of slow, because they really think about everything and they want to make it in a really good way. So they might need 1 or 2 more years to really come to the industrial point.
With R&D especially, failure is a recipe for success. What are some of the stories or experiences you can share for us to learn from and be inspired by?
Yeah, you're perfectly right. I think failures are kind of a daily business if you do research, and everyone who ever did some experiments might know that most of them fail at the first attempt. And maybe in a startup, it's even more challenging because you do not have a bunch of experienced scientists behind you who would prevent you from all the failures. But yes, you're also right. In the end, sometimes a failure turns into a success. And maybe I can have a nice example for you, because one of our most recently launched processes, the vapor fuse surfacing, in the beginning was full of some setbacks. So when we started and we were looking for a good solution how we could vapor polish 3D printed parts, we tried different solvents, and at one point after the process, the part was gone. So it was just not there anymore, which was really shocking in the beginning. But if you take your time and think about this for a second, you realize, yes, this solvent is working because it was capable to dissolve the part. So it's also a good solvent for vapor polishing. You just have to adjust the properties of the process, so the parameters, maybe you have to change the time and so on. And then at one point you will not have a part which is gone, but you will have a nicely vapor polished part. And in fact, after some more trials, we could reach this point. But then we were so excited and we thought, yeah, maybe it's not only the powder bed materials which we can use, we could also think about the FDM materials to vapor smooth. So we did another try there, and then completely the different happened. So the part was not gone, but it was almost twice the size because it looked like puffed rice. So it was full of bubbles everywhere. And this also looked very shocking to us in the beginning, especially the sales colleagues which passed by were like, oh my gosh, what happened there? And also there we at one point realized, yeah, there are some things we have to change in the process, but in principle it's working. So it's sometimes all about fine tuning in the end. And also with the vapor fuse surfacing process, it was like this in the end, because finally this process and also our Power Fuse S turned into a great success. And today we can vapor polish a bunch of materials in this machine. And so if you want and you're interested, you are welcome to use our DyeMansion to convince yourself about the success story here.
Thanks for that very interesting story. And for those who don't know what vapor fuse surfacing is, can you describe it a little bit so that they can relate?
So it's a vapor polishing method where you can get a very nice surface on your 3D printed parts. Because usually after 3D printing, you have a quite rough surface and it's not perfect for many applications, which might be also one of the hurdles which we still have to overcome. And during the vapor fuse surfacing process, we have a solvent vapor which condenses on the surface of the parts. And like this, it forms a very thin layer of solvent on the part. And as the solvent can dissolve the part, and we regulate the amount of solvent very precisely, we do not dissolve the entire part, but we just dissolve the very top surface, which is super rough. And then because of some energetic reasons, this diluted polymer at the surface rearranges itself and the entire surface gets flat. And then we use vacuum to reject the entire and the surface hardens again. And like this, you end up with a perfectly smooth, shiny 3D printed part.
And does this impact the material properties in different ways that improves the strength, or just curious if you can share more information?
Yeah, so indeed, it has an impact on the material properties. So for example, if you have very thin antennas, they are not breaking that easily anymore. So with the vapor fuse surfacing, we also can now use geometries which might not have been possible before because the thin stuff is just breaking away if you use the part. It also has an impact, for example, on bacteria growth because the surface is more smooth. So it's harder for the bacteria to find a place to live there, let's say, and so on. So there are a lot of changed properties which might be beneficial for many applications. And if anyone is interested there, I would welcome you just to have a look at our YouTube page, because there we have a nice content series where we show several improvements which are possible with vapor fuse surfacing.
Well, that's really exciting developments there. I hope more people learn more about the applications and how they can bring it in-house. But yes, beyond that, that's something that you guys have already worked on. What are some of the future developments you're excited about for additive manufacturing?
Well, as a chemist, for sure, for me, it's more fascinating to have a look on the new developments in terms of materials than in terms of maybe machine adjustments. And I mean, also today, there are a lot of materials on the market, but in the end, I think there is still a lot of space for improvement, and especially the specific choice of material and maybe also the combination of different materials, which have by nature different properties, is one of the key enablers for 3D printing in the end, because like this, you can enable even more applications because you could in principle print a super flexible material next to a very hard material. And like this, you can just produce hybrid materials, which are even better than everything which we have right now. And like this, many new applications in various industries will be enabled. But I also believe that not everything can be done with the material itself because of the printing process and so on. You're kind of restricted there. So I hope in the future there will be also a lot of post-processing developments which will help to add additional functions to a material after we print. So right now, most is about surface properties and color and so on, but there are many, many other things which you could just add to your part. And I think there's a lot of stuff which also we can develop, and I'm super excited to see where everything ends up in the future.
Definitely. So more materials development, seeing how we can work within the parameters of our equipment, and then exploring what other kinds of properties we can enable through different post-processing treatment to really take that technology to the next level. That's exciting. That said, you got into additive manufacturing, started as a chemist, now you're head of R&D. How does someone get into it? Are there a couple tips you can share for someone that wants to get into additive and follow your footsteps?
Well, first of all, I think the best thing is that you should always trust in your strengths. I mean, if you have a look at me, I was also not a 3D printing expert when I started at DyeMansion. And I think this is true for everyone. You need not to be an AM expert when you start here, because you will have a lot of valuable knowledge and a lot of very good skills, which will be an extra plus for AM. So just believe in your strengths and apply if you're interested. And then for sure also, it's important that you're creative, because I think 3D printing could make everything possible, but you also have to find a way to make it possible. And there are so many possibilities, and you should not just think, oh no, this is something which cannot work. I will not think about this anymore. But you should just believe in your creative ideas and try to make them happen. And last but not least, the 3D printing community is so diverse and open-minded. You can literally ask everyone everything. So I really recommend everyone, don't be shy to ask our people in the AM community anything, because you would lose a lot of knowledge if you would not ask. So just don't be shy and be open-minded to everyone, as the AM community is.
That is very true. The additive community is definitely basically a community that loves to collaborate. And that is why we are hosting the TIPE 3D Printing Conference in January 2027-28, so that we could share our experiences, insights, and hopefully then also learn more about some of the advancements you guys make, so folks could take advantage of that creativity and the work you guys do as well. Any last words you want to share?
Just join the event, I think, because it will be super exciting for everyone, not only for women. Also, it's kind of a female-focused event. I think it will be also a big benefit for all the male colleagues in the 3D printing sector. And I'm really looking forward to this event, because it's for me also one of the first where I can have a speaking slot. So I'm really excited.
You're right. We are definitely not a women's club, and invite all genders to join the conversation. All right. Well, thank you so much, Alena, and looking forward to seeing you there.
Thank you, Ted.
Thanks again for joining us at the Women in 3D Printing podcast TIPE series. If you like the content, please hit that subscribe button, follow us on LinkedIn or other social media platforms.
We'd also like to give a shout out to our platinum sponsors, HP, Trump, GE Additive, Matter Hackers, and Dassault for making all of this even possible. So mark your calendars for January 27th to 28th next year in 2021.
And visit us at type3dprinting.com to save your seat. And feel free to drop us a line if you have any questions or feedback.